In this video, we're going to try to talk about the difference between the square button and the square root on your calculator. So whenever we're working, a lot of times the square and the square root come in play whenever we're talking about the standard deviation and variance of a data set. So I have this data set of 5 points, and I've already calculated the mean at 47.2. Well, usually whenever we calculate standard deviation and variance, we use this table here, and what this table represents is the x value, which are the 5 data values. Then I do x minus the mean, the sample mean, and then I'm going to do x minus mean squared. So that means this number right here is going to get squared. And after I do that, I'm going to have the sum of the x minus means squared, which is the top part of our formula for variance. Okay, so what usually happens is I want to take 55 minus 47.2, and so in my calculator I'm just going to say 55 minus 47.2, and I get 7.8. Now at this point there are two different ways to find this third column. One way is to do 7.8 squared. Make sure you put parentheses around it. With the positive numbers it doesn't make much difference, but with the negative numbers it will. So I can either do, open my parentheses, 7.8, and then hit the square button here, and notice it looks just like what I've written over here, and I'll hit equal, and I get 60.84. Another way of doing it is, as you have subtracted the mean, the 47.2 on your calculator, it is already in there. You can also just hit the square button, and it means you're answered, which is this 7.8, and you're going to square it. And notice I get the exact same number. Now, if I do this for all of these, most of the time wherever I fill in this table, I usually just go ahead and do 60 minus 47.2, and then I take that value and square it. And so over here I get 163.84. Well, if I forgot to write this one down, I literally just have to press the up arrow a couple of times. Let me clear that out. And apparently it's not letting me do that. That's okay. So that's going to be 12.8. Now on the 48 minus 47.2, so I'll do 48 minus 47.2, 0.8, so that's 0.8 squared, and again I can either do it just typing in the square or 0.8 squared, and I get 0.64. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the 32 and the 41. I'm going to subtract 47.2 from both of those. So 32 minus 47.2, here's where the difference comes in. Notice it's a negative 15.2. So that means over here in this third column, I want to square a negative 15.2. Notice I put it in parentheses, just like the heading has, parentheses and then the square on the outside. I'm going to do the exact same thing in my calculator. I'm going to put parentheses, negative 15.2, close my parentheses, and then square it, just like it is in the formula. And I'm going to hit equal. 231.04. Notice it came out to a positive number. Everything in this column needs to be positive because you're squaring it. Square means that I've multiplied a negative 15.2 times a negative 15.2. Well, and remember, a negative times a negative becomes a positive. So this entire column should be positive. Now let me show you what else you can do. I've got 41 minus 47.2, and I get a negative 6.2. Just like previously, whenever I had the answer, I can also just hit square, and it's meaning it's got the answer, and we're going to square it. And we're going to hit enter, and I get 38.44. Well, just to check ourselves, this is negative 6.2 squared, So if I put in parentheses negative, and whenever you're doing a negative, make sure that you use the negative key down on the bottom, not the minus sign, okay? There is a difference. Whenever it's in a formula like this, or in a problem with the minus in between two numbers, then you can use the minus sign. If it's a single number, such as this, you've got to use this negative on the bottom. So I'm going to do negative 6.2, and I'm going to close my parentheses and square it, and I get 38.44. Same answer. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish out this problem because I want to look at the square root button. And so I'm going to add up this column, 60.84, 163.84, oh, I only do one positive, 0.64 plus a 231.04 plus 38.44. And I get 494.8. Well, remember, for variance, it's going to be the sum of those data values minus the mean squared, and then divided by n minus 1. The n is how many different values you have here in the x column. It's not adding them up. It's strictly, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to put here 494.8 divided by 5 minus 1. Two different ways you can do this problem. You can go ahead and say, okay, 5 minus 1 is 4. And I'm going to type in 494.8 divided by 4. And I get 123.7 for the variance. Now another way is right here at this point, I can type in 494.8 divided by, if I have more than one number on either the numerator or the denominator, I've got to put parentheses around that entire thing. So I can do 5 minus 1, close my parentheses. What this is saying is that I'm taking this number and dividing it by this whole thing. Remember, order of operations, your calculator does the order of operations as well, and so it's going to do 5 minus 1 first. And notice I get the same 123.7. So this is my sample variance. Now to find the standard deviation is going to be an S, which is the square root of my variance. So I'm going to take the square root of 123.7. Well, on your calculator, you don't want to hit square, you want that square root symbol. And so the square root is above the square, and it's in yellow. Any of these that are in yellow, we need to hit the second button first. So I'm going to hit second, and then the square, and notice I come up with the square root symbol. And I'm going to take 123.7 and take the square root of it, which is 11.12. And this is the same standard deviation that I get if I have entered it and hit my stat var. Notice 11.12. Same thing. So just be careful whenever you're wanting the square or the square root. Anything in yellow above a key, you're going to have to hit second first. So go ahead and try some of the problems with standard deviation so that you can calculate them by hand. If you have questions, let me know. Thank you.